Right, so Tim, we've spoken about trust, and I think you mentioned a historical sort of anecdote where, people were comfortable speaking on the phone with voice channels and not so much when it came to video, when that first appeared. Now, we can sort of predict that, we already know that some people have a propensity to sort of trust technology and even AI and whatnot. And we also know that it doesn't always work like that. So the question is, especially with things like data privacy and whatnot in play here, what do you think about the adoption rates are going to be? And do you think it's going to be widely adopted, let's say on a commercial standpoint? I mean, having a conversation at 3 o'clock in the morning with AI for fun is one thing. But when you go into banking, when you go into like sort of things that are related to privacy and confidentiality, how do you think this is going to go?
Well, first of all, you're speaking to someone who was working in TalkTalk at the time of the major data breach that we had when we were hacked with a SQL injection by, I think it was a 15-year-old kid. I don't think TalkTalk will ever recover from that fully. It cost multiple millions and millions of pounds, huge data breach. So my point is, it only takes one mistake and then a company is brought to its knees financially and it loses the trust of all its customers. So you just cannot make that mistake. It has to be avoided. So you have to be extremely careful about how you deploy AI. And there's a number of different elements here. Obviously there's the piece around data governance, ensuring that data is absolutely secure. And LLMs, by their very nature, it's quite amorphous and difficult to ring-fence data. Even if you have your own individual cloud version, a ring-fence cloud version, even then, are there some elements of the data that has been used for training? Where is that going to? Obviously, everybody is aware of what's happening with DeepSeek at the moment, but in the West, there's a huge amount of distrust for DeepSeek, whether China is siphoning off information for its own purposes. And, quite frankly, that's just unclear. So, huge amount of distrust. And whatever solution you have in place, it has to be completely robust, it has to be completely reliable and watertight. I think the other thing to say is we've been talking a lot about voice bots and chat bots, etc., and the need for trust. So it's really important to be honest and straightforward with your customers about what's being used for what purposes. So if you're using a voice bot to interact with clients, yes, make it as human and as seamless as you possibly can, but declare that it's AI. Same thing with a chatbot online. Declare that it's AI, but then make it as human and seamless as you possibly can. So be upfront, get that trust. It's also about options and choice, giving customers the choice of whether they interact with AI or whether they want to speak to a human. Even if that means they might have to wait in the queue for 5 minutes, they have the option to do that. It's about giving them that choice. And I think the other thing to say is the temptation is to use a shotgun approach to AI and just use it everywhere as much as you possibly can. Now, I've come from a recruitment background, and you can use AI to sift through CVs. You could make selections of candidates using AI, but I firmly believe that that's not the right approach. I think there are some things AI can be used for, simple transactional stuff. I'm less comfortable about using AI to make decisions on people's lives and careers, and I think most people would agree with me on that. So, AI should be used selectively, not somewhere where bias, for example, could have an impact. So you need to gain people's trust by using AI in, a robust manner, using it transparently, but also using it in the right places as well.
Dr. Basit, I know you've got something to say here.
So the subject of ethics and trust is actually very, very important. And in terms of the range of challenges that telcos face, this sits somewhere at the top 3. Human beings generally have an aversion to dealing with machines in the form of human beings. Okay. The whole subject of deep fakes and so on and so forth, the trust in Gen AI assistants, the subject of data privacy, the subject of data loss is sort of top of the mind. And we know that at least within the world, the greater emphasis on data privacy and the regulations in Europe versus the relatively less focus on regulations means that the focus actually does exist. And we all know that any data breach somewhere or another will highlight and enhance that. And so I think it's very, very important for us to ensure that the telcos make it clear to their customers at large that they have a very strong governance regime. At the same time, they need to make sure internally that the whole subject of data privacy is very, very well controlled. I've had experience where customers or my clients have reported back to me, and where somebody has said that one man rang in and said, am I speaking to a human being? Am I speaking to a machine? And you could clearly see that aversion. And it's actually very, very important when we bring Gen AI, we bring agentics, we make sure that these sensitivities are observed. So the first point is to make it clear to them that there are people who are worried about this. And so if you start off with the approach to say, you can either speak to a Gen AI assistant or you can speak to a human assistant. Given that choice in itself is a big step, because then the customers feel that we are being given the choice, and therefore there is this openness and observance to that sensitivity of mind. And once that does, you build that trust within the customers to say, they've given me the option to deal with a human being I'm very, very comfortable with, as opposed to Gen AI assistant where I'm not so comfortable with. But the very fact that they've given this option increases that trust, and I think that's very, very important.